So the big news yesterday was that indeed the senator of Maryland, Chris Van Hollen, was able to meet along with Kilmar Abrego Garcia's lawyer with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And they finally met after being rejected from the CCOT maximum security, labor camp, death camp, gulag, take your pick. It is what it is. And here you see him. He seems to be very clean. It looks like they got him some new clothes is what happened here. He deliberately, obviously, is not being met with in the prison. That would be a no-no for anyone who's critical of it. Anyone who celebrates stacking of human beings, in human ways in which we've seen them stacked, obviously they would not be allowed access. So here he is, Chris Van Hollen speaking with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, again, the Maryland father of three. He's a metal worker, a sheet metal worker, excuse me. He had a court order in 2019 that allowed him to stay legally in this country for fear of deportation and what that might mean for his life, possibly endangering him in El Salvador. He is Salvadoran, unlike some of the people from Venezuela who were deported to CCOT. All of this is illegal, by the way. We are in multiple moments of illegality, of unconstitutionality, of a hostile government takeover, a power grab, a skirting of law. And in multiple ways, this case is only one case, but it kind of gets to the heart of everything that's been happening. But I'm happy to see that Chris Van Hollen's persistence really led to the meeting. Now, before we break down exactly who the facets of the meeting, apparently Chris Van Hollen, here he is in El Salvador, giving a press conference in this, empty conference room. But allegedly, this is what he says was the route to getting the Nayib Bukele regime, which has practiced this kind of blanket disappearance on its own people. This was the moment that helped get the government on his side, because he started to threaten, look, you guys are in violation of international law because you're not letting an inmate meet with their lawyer.
Point out that this inability to communicate with his lawyers is a violation of international law.
So there's some translation here.
El Salvador is a party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. El Salvador has signed and ratified that covenant. And that covenant says, and I quote, "A detained or imprisoned person shall be entitled to communicate and consult with his legal counsel," unquote.
So here he is, he's by himself, basically. Nobody's backing him up. And he's like, look, don't ask me or Trump. I mean, I've heard the vice president say, well, we can't return him. We can't have you meet him because, we're getting paid for this. We're getting paid to do this illegality. Here's Chris Van Hollen saying, El Salvador is also part of the Central America. It's part of South America. It's part of the different international law that applies to both the region, but also the world. So if you're a party to the ICC, if you're party to international law, and you say that any prisoner has a legal right to access their lawyer, this is in violation of that. So are you willing to stand up should any of your, any of the countries, your neighboring countries in the hemisphere, take you to task on this? You're not Israel. You're not the United States. You could very well be taken to task over denying Kilmar Abrego Garcia his access to a lawyer. So this seems to be what change Nayib Bukele's mind and the administration's mind on whether or not they're going to let him meet him. Now, what happened next was just a massive ploy to try to make it look somehow like Chris Van Hollen and Kilmar Abrego Garcia were, just vacationing. And this has been amazing to watch because this is actually part of Nayib Bukele, who obviously took to, the fasci platform of Twitter and tweeted yesterday, Kilmar Abrego Garcia miraculously risen from the, in quotes, death camps and in quotes, torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. And he puts a little, cocktail emoji at this. So now sipping margarita, what are you talking about? There's many things wrong with this. Number one, putting death camps and torture in quotation marks. We'll put a pin in that because we'll get back to it. Sipping margaritas. Okay, well, I don't see any margaritas. Well, then you look closer, right? And you see there are these two empty glass, or two, not empty, they're two glasses that seem to have clear liquid in them, looks to be water, and they have a rim around it that is, a sugar rim or a salt rim, whatever, and then like a cherry. It's basically the weirdest looking margarita you've ever seen. If margarita were to have no alcohol, no lime, and I believe margaritas are not garnished with cherries, but then you kind of read into it. That's what it is. Lean, read, you know what I'm saying? My brain. Apparently, according to a person familiar with the situation, and this is the New York Times reporting, a Bukele aide placed the two glasses with cherries and salted rims on the table in front of Mr. Van Hollen and Mr. Abrego Garcia in the middle of their meeting in an attempt to stage the photo. So that weird looking margarita was straight up an aide who came in the middle of what you can only imagine was an intense discussion between Chris Van Hollen, Abrego Garcia's lawyer, and Abrego Garcia himself, and was like, here, let's stage this so precisely Nayib Bukele can tweet out some bullshit. Obviously, Van Hollen was able to pass along messages from Abrego Garcia's wife, messages of love. So at least, Abrego Garcia knows that his wife is fighting for him, thinking about him. But that wasn't enough for Nayib Bukele. He quote tweeted this disgusting tweet and said, now that he's been confirmed healthy, he gets the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody. So I'm going to continue violating international law when it comes to the orders to return this person, right? But I'm going to violate US law, but your president, your authoritarian has given me grounds to do so because Attorney General Bondi, Donald Trump himself, Marco Rubio, all of them are in violation of laws. Which laws are they in violation of? They're in violation of the federal laws, immigration laws that say that there is a stay on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's removal, number one. They're also in violation of Judge Boasberg's ruling that said that those planes that were carrying Kilmar and 238 other men, many of them Venezuelan, majority of them Venezuelan, should be turned around immediately as there was no due process for their removal and there was already litigation on the way. And so what the Trump administration did was they ignored that ruling. And it was based under the reason and rationale they used to remove these men, which was the Alien Enemies Act, right? So now Boasberg is saying some of the people who have been facilitating the removal, Pam Bondi, Marco Rubio, other aides, maybe Trump himself, will have to testify under oath or be held in contempt of court because that's exactly what they're doing, is they are skirting and flirting the laws and they are not abiding by this court, the federal court. So you've got at least two. If you want to add on the Supreme Court ruling, you've got three different justices who are saying this is illegal. So anyone who's trying to tell you otherwise, many right-wing mouthpieces are all up in this right now. are just completely lying. Speaking of the mouthpieces, and again, I apologize for this very relaxing, little NPR day that I'm having. Senator Chris Van Hollen, this is Micahel Knowles of the Daily Wire saying Senator Chris Van Hollen's heart wants what the heart wants. And he generated an AI image of Chris Van Hollen and I guess Abrego Garcia or some Latino man with tattoos on his face, of them drinking wine together with roses between them. I mean, this is truly psychotic. The last time I was on Piers Morgan with Micahel Knowles, I think I was on with him twice. One of the times, I basically told him, look, you're grooming your audience for authoritarianism. That's what this is. All you care about is lying to them, and you're making sure that we dehumanize people like Abrego Garcia in order to allow for Trump's lawlessness. That's what this kind of bullshit is. This is some weird, twisted bullshit, to say nothing of, the sort of closeted fantasies that Micahel Knowles has, right? He's just like, oh, the heart wants what the heart wants. Okay, Michael, like, calm down. But this is like, that the right is triggered, and that the Democrats, specifically Chris Van Hollen, are doing the right thing when you see this kind of stuff. Because this kind of stuff is like, this is them just bending over backwards to try to make what is clearly illegal look normal, try to dehumanize folks. They're getting so mad. They're so mad that Chris Van Hollen met with Abrego Garcia, and the fact that it worked. Donald Trump is saying he's grandstanding, on and on and on and on. And that's because it is a working strategy. It's triggering them, and we should keep triggering them. Chris Van Hollen should be joined by more Democrats, whether they be in the House or the Senate or just Maryland representatives, who knows. And Chris Van Hollen should go back. He should go back, and he should go back, and he should go back until Abrego Garcia and the other men are released from Sicot. But when it comes to whether or not this is a good look for Democrats, I say yes. Chris Van Hollen, and look at Chris Van Hollen, he's not yelling, he's not screaming, he's not even doing sort of the Bernie Sanders, old angry man. He's not particularly inspiring in how he speaks. No, because that's maybe not who he is, but he's there. He's there. He's doing the work. He's doing what needs to be done. So it is incredible and he is triggering the right. Can you imagine if an entire brigade of people, if an entire group, if AOC herself, if Bernie himself, if folks made this a priority? Let's do the Fight Oligarchy tour in El Salvador. You want to make a fucking splash? Let's go. Like, I am so convinced that this is the right way because, again, look at how triggered the right is. They got to go to Grok to make their dumbass AI memes. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom. Do it.